On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 people took off from Kuala Lumpur headed for Beijing. It never arrived. No distress call, no explosion, no wreckage found for over a year. The plane and the people on it simply vanished. And 12 years later, we still don't know what happened. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand three things. What actually happened in the cockpit in those first critical minutes, why the search became one of the most expensive in aviation history, and why, despite all of that, we still have no answers. This is MH370. A normal night that became anything but. It was just after midnight. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 pushed back from Gate C1 at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. A Boeing 777-200ER, one of the most reliable aircraft ever built. 227 passengers, 12 crew. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old pilot with over 18,000 flight hours. His co-pilot Farik Abdul Hamid, 27 years old, was on his last supervised flight before full qualification. The weather was clear. The plane was in perfect mechanical condition. The flight plan was routine, a 6-hour journey northeast to Beijing. Dozens of these flights happen every single day. At 12:41 a.m., MH370 lifted off the runway. Air traffic control tracked it, climbing normally to cruising altitude. At 1:01 a.m., they reached 35,000 feet. At 1:07 a.m., the 8-CARS system, the plane's automated data link, sent a routine transmission. Everything was normal. Then, at 1:19 a.m., Farik's last words to Kuala Lumpur ATC, "Good night, Malaysian 370." And that was it. 40 seconds later, the transponder, the device that broadcasts the plane's position and identity to radar, went dark. The plane didn't crash, it didn't explode. It just stopped transmitting. And then it turned around. Someone took control and flew for 7 more hours. Here's what makes this case so different from any other aviation mystery. The plane didn't just disappear, it made a deliberate, calculated turn. Military radar, which doesn't depend on the transponder, tracked the plane banking sharply left over the South China Sea. It crossed back over the Malaysian peninsula, flew northwest through the Strait of Malacca, and then headed out over the open Indian Ocean. This wasn't turbulence. This wasn't a malfunction. This was a programmed course change. At some point after the transponder went off, AKRs also stopped transmitting, but the plane's satellite communication system, its SATCOM unit, kept pinging a satellite operated by Inmarsat, not sending data. Just staying connected like a phone that's locked but still on. Engineers at Inmarsat analyzed the timing and frequency of those pings. What they found was extraordinary. Using a technique called Doppler analysis, measuring tiny shifts in signal frequency caused by the plane's movement, they were able to estimate the aircraft's general direction. The conclusion: MH370 flew south deep into the southern Indian Ocean. For nearly 7 hours after the transponder went dark, it ran out of fuel somewhere around 2:25 in the morning on March 8th and went down in one of the most remote, deepest stretches of ocean on Earth. The biggest maritime search in history, and it found almost nothing. When MH370 failed to arrive in Beijing, nobody panicked immediately. Planes get delayed. But when hours passed and contact was never re-established, the alarm went out. And what followed was the most expensive, most expansive search operation in the history of civil aviation. 26 countries mobilized. Ships, aircraft, submarines. The initial search area covered an area larger than Australia. Nothing, not a trace. Then the Inmarsat data narrowed the focus to the southern Indian Ocean, a place so remote that accurate seafloor maps barely existed. Underwater drones spent months scanning the ocean floor at depths of 4 and 5 kilometers. Over 120,000 square kilometers searched. Still nothing. Then, on July 29, 2015, more than 16 months after the plane vanished, a fragment of wing washed up on Réunion Island off the coast of Madagascar. It was confirmed as a flaperon from a Boeing 777, specifically from MH370. Over the following months, more pieces turned up. A section of horizontal stabilizer, fragments of interior paneling, a piece of wing flap. All confirmed. All from MH370. All carried thousands of kilometers by the Indian Ocean's currents. The debris told investigators the plane had gone down somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, consistent with the satellite data. But the ocean floor search was called off in January 2017 after covering 120,000 square kilometers and finding no main wreckage. Accident, hijacking, or something darker? So what actually happened? 3 broad theories have emerged, and none of them has been proven. The first is a catastrophic accident. Some investigators believe a rapid decompression event, possibly caused by a fire in the electronics bay or an undetected structural failure, incapacitated the crew. The plane then flew on autopilot, a ghost aircraft, until it ran out of fuel. This theory aligns with the flight path. A controlled, straight trajectory requires no conscious pilot input once programmed, but it doesn't explain who turned off the transponder. The second theory is pilot action. Captain Zaharieh Ahmad Shah was investigated intensively. His personal life was examined. A divorce, political tensions in Malaysia, a home flight simulator on which a similar southern route had apparently been plotted. Malaysian authorities never publicly accused him. But many investigators believe this is the most likely explanation, that Zaharieh deliberately diverted the plane and flew it to a location where it would never be found. The third theory, pushed by some families of passengers, is a cover-up. That someone, somewhere, knows more than they're saying. State actors, cargo manifests, military radar data that's never been fully released. These theories are harder to verify, but they haven't gone away. In 2023, a new private search was launched by a Texas-based company called Ocean Infinity, using autonomous underwater vehicles over a new search zone further north than the original. They found nothing conclusive. The search continues. The human cost of the unknown. Behind the data, the satellite pings, and the theories, there are 239 people who never came home, and the families they left behind. For 12 years, the relatives of those on board have been in a kind of impossible limbo. No official cause of death in many jurisdictions, no bodies to bury, no final answers. Some have dedicated their lives to demanding answers, lobbying governments, hiring independent lawyers, commissioning private research. Others have had to make peace with the fact that they may never know. Grace Nathan, whose mother was on board, has become one of the most vocal advocates for a renewed search. "We don't need a reason to continue searching," she said. "We need a reason to stop, and we haven't found one." Malaysia Airlines declared the aircraft missing and presumed crashed in January 2015, less than a year after it vanished. To many families, that felt like a door being closed before anyone had looked inside. A new search was confirmed to begin in 2024. Ocean Infinity has signed a no-find, no-fee agreement with the Malaysian government to resume. Whether they succeed or not, the case has already changed aviation forever. Real-time tracking, continuous HER's transmission, and automatic crash beacon deployments are all now being accelerated as a direct result of MH370. The plane is still out there. Somewhere at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, 239 people are waiting to be found. The question is whether we'll ever look hard enough to find them. If you want to go deeper on the aviation disasters that changed the world, the next video is right there. I'll see you in it.